listeners. Welcome back to the Dethroning Your Inner Critic podcast. Today, we are talking about the 5 most important lessons to making all of your relationships better. I've been married for 27 years, and my husband John and I have faced seasons of intense challenge and growth. Today, I want to take you along on this journey of the real nitty-gritty lows of my life and our marriage. And I want to share how the mind method, which is my personal approach, became a lifeline that lifted me from the depths of resentment and exhaustion to a place of authentic connection. And this is not just with John, but it's with my 3 children as well. And really, most importantly, with myself. I have to think about my parents, who were married for 54 years before my dad passed away last year. They set a really important example. Now, their relationship was far from perfect. There were many rocky times, but they both had the courage to do the inner work that was required to stay together, and not just, at one point in their marriage. They really did inner work throughout their entire 54 years together. Now, I'm an only child, so I became a fixer early on. I learned to help people see things differently. But if I look beneath that desire to want to help people see themselves and their world differently, what I can see is my own need for safety and security, because when my parents were happy, I felt good, I felt safe, I felt comfortable. And when they weren't, I felt uneasy and scared and anxious that somehow my world was going to fall apart. And that is part of what led me to become a psychotherapist and a coach, right? Because partly I had learned early on that if I could make other people feel good, that's how I felt valuable. Okay. So today I want to unpack how our basic human needs for comfort, security, and being valued are really at the core of all of our relationships, and how, if we're not aware that that's what's really driving our relationships, they can actually wreak havoc on our relationships. So my parents had a deep commitment to do their inner work to stay together, right? Which is understanding themselves on a deeper level. I am so grateful that I learned that from them, because without the journey of truly knowing myself on a deep level, I would be a completely different person and living a life that doesn't feel like anything close to the life I'm living now. I think I might have continued to feel unfulfilled in my marriage and my life. That possibly would have led me to divorce. I think I would have continued to feel this persistent sense of discontentment and restlessness instead of knowing how to keep returning myself to inner peace like I do now. I think I would have stayed caught in a loop of constantly searching and feeling the dissatisfaction and never feeling truly settled. I think I would be more reactive. And I think I would be easily swayed by external circumstances in my life. And I think I would also be constantly second guessing myself instead of really navigating my life with a clarity and purpose that I have now. And this has been a long journey of getting here, okay? But it's been a journey that's been essential, and not just for my own fulfillment in my life, but for creating meaningful connections with other people and contributing authentically to the world around me. And that's what I'm so passionate about, is helping people to navigate that journey for themselves, because knowing myself deeply has given me the resilience and the inner peace that no external achievement or any kind of relationship could ever provide for me. So the first lesson that I learned was the importance of being honest with yourself. So honesty in the sense of, are you truly committed to looking inward, even when it means needing to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself and about maybe how your unmet needs have contributed to some ways of being in your life that are not in alignment with who you want to be and the relationships that you want to create. Okay. Because if you're unwilling to understand those deeper parts of yourself, it doesn't matter if you get into counseling. It doesn't matter if go see a marriage therapist. No relationship advice is going to bridge that gap. You've got to be willing to do your own inner work. So I remember a period where John and I were really struggling. He was traveling all over the country as a business consultant. I was home trying to build my own individual practice and care for our 3 children. And this sense of resentment and loneliness kept creeping in. And I was so angry with him. And I felt guilty about that because he was doing what was best for our family. He was working, right? And I felt terrible because I knew that my anger was getting in the way of my relationship with him. But here's the thing, my anger and my resentment was never about him. I thought it was about him, but it was really about my own unmet needs, my own ideal expectations, and not even understanding that I had this automatic mind that was screaming at me that I should be handling everything perfectly and I should be able to manage the kids and the house and my career all with grace. And, especially as a therapist, supporting other people's joy and peace and happiness, right? My oldest son was struggling and there was nothing that I could do about it. And this is when the mind method became my saving grace. So I want to go back and sort of explain some of the science underneath the mind method. So at the core of every single human being, we're driven by a deep-seated need to feel loved, accepted, and valued. So when we experience tension or upset in our relationships, it usually stems from feeling that these essential needs are not being met, right? Because these needs are our very life force. They're hardwired into us through millions of years of evolution. Okay. Neuroscience shows us that our brains and nervous systems are hardwired to seek these validations from other people because in our prehistoric past, feeling valued and making meaningful contributions within our tribe was essential for survival. Okay. If we weren't valued and we weren't making meaningful contributions, we were ostracized, which often meant death. So this survival instinct still lives inside of us today. So we've got this unconscious and automatic mind that's continually scanning our environment and categorizing everything as either a potential danger or a source of pleasure and contentment and joy. Okay. So this is an ancient mechanism, but it's the driving force behind our current emotions and behaviors because it's always pushing us to avoid pain and seek contentment. So when someone else's actions hit on that button where we feel in some way unloved or unimportant, it can trigger a powerful response. And we don't know that what we're being hit, right? What that button it is pushing is feeling unloved or unimportant, right? We think we're having a reaction because, we told our partner that the dishes needed to be washed and they forgot to wash the dishes. Okay. So this unmet need can take the form of anger or anxiety because our mind is trying to really try to push us to regain that feeling of value and belonging. Okay. Most of us don't realize this is even happening beneath the surface. So we think that we're simply upset about a minor issue. But the truth is much deeper at our core because we feel dismissed and undervalued. Okay. So I developed the mind method to shed light on these automatic processes of the mind, because it guides us in recognizing and understanding the true motivations behind our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, and our behaviors. So when we uncover these deeper layers, we gain the power to change the course of our lives because we're moving from those automatic reactions to really becoming intentional and aligned with our actions, which stem from our emotions, which stem from our thoughts and beliefs. Okay. So when we align our thoughts and beliefs in a way that reflect who we truly are and the life that we really want to be living and the relationships that we really want to be forming, we can transform everything. Okay. So the mind method is not just about managing our emotions, it's really a pathway to transforming our experience of our life one moment at a time. So let's go back to my marriage. John was traveling. I felt overwhelmed. I was struggling to feel like a capable mom. And I was also being pulled by this larger vision for my life that I wasn't able to act on. See, I had dreams of wanting to make a much bigger impact, not just one person at a time. But my life was consumed by caring for my children and managing my practice. And I felt confined. I felt like I was in a box and I was unable to even see what was the next step towards the meaningful impact I wanted to make in the world. And my oldest son at the time was dealing with anxiety. And I tried a lot of different things to help him, but I couldn't fix it. And so it contributed to me feeling helpless and inadequate and stuck. And it wasn't my husband's fault, but I felt like I was failing in every area of my life. And my automatic mind kept convincing me that if he weren't gone so much, I'd have a different life. Okay. So I was frustrated. I was full of self-doubt. It clouded my mood and my sense of myself and my entire experience of my life. So when John would come back from his trips and he wanted to reconnect, I was filled with so much resentment. And, I would take it out on him. And the poor guy was just doing his job. So the breakthrough came when I was really finally willing to step back and face the truth that my resentment was mine. It didn't belong to him, that my emotions had nothing to do with him, that they were coming from my automatic mind, right? That's the mind that I call our inner critic self. And she had convinced me, right? I call my inner critic Wilhelmina. Wilhelmina had, because she's worrying Wilhelmina. And she convinced me that my worth as a mom was tied to my kids' happiness and that my purpose was only valuable if it met some idealized picture of what success was supposed to look like, right? And that wasn't John's job. And nor was it my family's struggles that were making me miserable. It was my own unexamined beliefs of who I was supposed to be and how life was supposed to look. So when I began doing the work to unhook myself from my inner critic, right? And that's the voice that sets those impossible standards and tells us who we should be. When I was able to learn to unhook from that voice, everything started to change. And I realized that my value wasn't dependent on my children's well-being or my career reaching some pinnacle, that my fulfillment could only come from within, from a sense of purpose that was rooted in being my true self, rather than meeting these standards that had been set by our culture. So unhooking from my inner critic was the path that led me back to joy and connection, and most importantly, to a deeper inner peace that doesn't rely on external circumstances. So this shift not only transformed my relationship with John, but with myself and with my entire experience of life. So the second lesson here is in really recognizing that our resentment, our anger, our fear, our feelings of inadequacy come from our automatic mind. They come from our inner critic self, which creates unrealistic standards and attaches our self-worth to external achievements or to the happiness of other people. And the breakthrough comes when we realize that true fulfillment is not about any of that. It can only come from within. So another part of my automatic mind that interfered with my marriage was also rooted in my childhood experiences. So growing up, I learned not only to be a fixer, but my parents encouraged a level of self-expression and curiosity and really cultivated an adventurous spirit within me. And this led to what I can say is an extroverted personality. I love to have fun. I love to connect with people. And my husband has more of a reserved personality. So he's more introverted. He's a bit guarded. And it takes him some time before he can truly connect with people and before people can feel that they can truly connect with him. So for years, I saw this difference as a problem that needed to be fixed. And I believed that John needed to be more expressive or outgoing to fit my picture of what the perfect husband should be, right? And so here's the third profound lesson. Real love is about accepting your partner exactly as they are and exactly as they are not. So I used to wish that John would be more outgoing and more vocal about his feelings. And I wanted him to fit that idealized version that I'd created in my mind. But the truth is that John is a quiet, deeply caring man who expresses love in his own way. And he may not be the life of the party all of the time, but he shows his love through his actions, like staying connected with us even when he's traveling or taking on so many responsibilities in our life without a word. And the real shift happened when I started examining my automatic mind. I realized that my self-worth was so tied not only to my extroverted personality that I projected onto John, but I also assumed that others wouldn't truly value or understand him unless he were more like me. Now, how arrogant is that? That's a part of me that I didn't realize. So I had to let go of this need to fix him and instead see him for who he really is. And once I did, I found so many countless reasons to love and appreciate him just as he is. See, it's so often that we fall in love with a person's potential instead of accepting who they genuinely are. The beauty of partnership lies in fully accepting each other, flaws, quirks, and all. And that goes for him also accepting me with all my flaws and all my quirks. So this is where the mind method worked magic, because it showed me that the problem had nothing to do with anything about my husband, not his personality, not his job. Again, it was my automatic mind attaching expectations that didn't align with reality. And every time I felt disappointed, it was the story my inner critic was telling me. It was a story that was built up over years. And by learning to unhook from that story that I mistook for the truth, I was able to experience a love that wasn't conditional. So the fourth lesson is about trust. And I don't mean trusting your partner, I mean trusting life. See, I used to think that the only way things would turn out okay is if I controlled everything, my children, my business, my marriage. And I never saw myself as controlling. I wasn't a helicopter mom. In fact, I was the polar opposite. But what I was doing was trying to control the future, trying to make sure everything would go exactly as planned, trying to make sure that I was doing everything that was needed so my kids would feel confident and happy and at peace with themselves. But life does not work that way. So eventually I had to learn to let go. I had to learn to trust the flow of life and to surrender control and let things unfold exactly as they are supposed to. Because we are all on our individual journeys, and the parts of our journey that are the darkest are the parts where we learn the most about ourselves. That's where we learn our most important life lessons. So surrendering control and letting things unfold as they are going to unfold is far from easy. But through the mind method, I learned to observe my anxiety, to observe my automatic thoughts, to observe my worries about the future, and to not get entangled in them. Instead, to let them pass by instead of clinging to them. And when I finally learned how to unhook myself from that need to control everything, I felt this weight just lift off of me. So my relationship with John started to feel lighter and more natural. And I started to feel more present with my children. And I could actually enjoy the moments, the small moments of life without feeling this constant pressure. So the irony is letting go strengthened my marriage. It transformed my relationship with my children. It transformed my relationship with myself. It transformed my relationship to my business. It transformed my relationship to my life. It made room for connection and peace because I wasn't so wrapped up in my own mind's expectations. So when we understand that we all share the same basic needs and we're driven by this automatic mind that's so intertwined with these basic needs, we begin to see into each other's hearts. So I want you to imagine the world we'd live in if we could look beyond people's actions and understand what's truly inside. People don't hurt each other out of malice or anger or resentment. We act out of unmet needs and hoping that our actions will in some way fulfill those unmet needs. Okay. So we tend to hold other people responsible for how we feel. And we expect them to fulfill our needs for love and acceptance and validation. But what if we could go deeper to the source of all human emotions? What if we learned to fulfill our own needs from within ourselves? Now, this does not mean condoning or accepting bad behavior from other people, but it does mean developing a deeper understanding and compassion for ourselves and for other people, because we're all motivated by the same essential needs. And when we start to recognize these needs within ourselves, we gain the power to transform our relationships. So the next time you feel hurt or frustrated by something, try asking yourself, what need am I expecting someone or something else to fill, right? Or ask about another person. What is the need that this other person is trying to meet? See, these needs for love and acceptance and understanding live in each and every one of us. So by learning first how to meet those needs within ourselves, we free other people from the burden of our expectations, and we allow our relationships to become more genuine and more fulfilling. Now, the fifth lesson is that true understanding and compassion in relationships begins with recognizing that we all share these same fundamental needs for love and acceptance and validation. Okay. So instead of continuing to look outside of ourselves, by really learning to understand the language of our hearts, because we all have the same language in our hearts. And by learning to understand the language of our automatic mind, we open up the door to true transformation. So I want to leave you with this. The journey of relationships doesn't matter whether it's marriage or with your children or with your family or with your coworkers or colleagues or friends or extended family or with the collective relationship that we share with other humans. Relationships are not easy. It is a constant balancing act between us as the individual and us as the collective, right? It's about showing up for another person, even when it's tough and even when we are feeling our deepest wounds. But most importantly, it's about doing the inner work to unhook ourselves from those automatic voices of doubt and blame and shame and anger and sadness and loneliness and unfulfillment and discontent that our minds create, because we can see those past stories. And when we can see our stories, we can see our partner's stories. And we can see them and we can see ourselves more clearly. So I hope this resonates for you and helps you find your way back into really connecting with your true, authentic self. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe. And remember to take the free inner critic assessment at innercriticassessment.com. It's a great way to uncover what stories your mind might be spinning that are continuing to hold you back in your relationships and in your life. So thanks for tuning in. And until next time, keep going deeper and looking at your own unmet needs.